Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Safari Mack Explores North America. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining me from last week's Part 1 episode, welcome to Part 2 of the Coyote, or Canis latrans. So, we're still in the state of Arizona. Be sure to join me at the end of the episode today to uncover the next Safari Mack animal as we continue to explore the very hot regions of the southwestern United States geography. But as always, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for more information on conservation projects from all over the world, as well as special tips and projects that you can practice in your own backyard. And finally, if you have a question about animals, or if there's an animal that you would like me to do in the future, just send me an email, which you'll find the link to down in the description below. But if you're ready, let's go on to the wild things of coyotes. For starters, believe it or not, coyotes are actually known to run up to 40 miles an hour and can leap 4 meters horizontally, or that's at least 12 feet horizontally. So believe it or not, this actually makes them much faster than it actually makes them twice as fast as typical Roadrunners, which would probably only be able to run around 20 miles an hour. In fact, believe it or not, there's actually a funny clip of a real life coyote, in a sense, chasing a Roadrunner, which I'll be able to share the link with you down in the description below. Now, I know I went a little fast, but I wasn't ready. So here, I like to show you a couple of differences between the wolf and the coyote. Here you can see that the coyote really has a much smaller build than that of a wolf, which seems to give them actually a better advantage. Because, as I said last week, coyotes are basically now where the wolves aren't. But this while they seem to be filling an ecological niche, there seems to be confusion as to discriminating them from dogs. So, just to give you it kind of looks somewhat similar to that of a German Shepherd, but coyotes always have this kind of black tip at the tip of their tails, so that way you can now hopefully avoid confusion when trying to determine who's who. Another wild thing about coyotes, which really I think is a really incredible sign of intelligence, they are known to have 11 different sounds, from barks or yips, howls, and other kinds of vocalizations that two coyotes could end up sounding like a small pack. So talk about trickery. Finally, they're actually a pretty good city animal, just like our foxes and our peregrine falcons and other sorts of animals that we may have already uncovered in Safari Mack. Because we're continuing to move into certain habitats and we're occupying more space, animals are having to learn how to adapt to city life, and coyotes are absolutely no exception. They've been actually doing pretty well for themselves. But now, unfortunately, it's not in the city, but more out in the rural regions where they're facing some problems. Now, as I said to you last week in Part 1's episode at the beginning, despite being persecuted by human hunters and even with the near extinction of the wolves in North America, coyotes have actually managed to do well for themselves, but even they face challenges, especially when it comes to livestock. See, unfortunately, they will occupy the same areas that livestock will occupy, and while it is true that coyotes will go after calves, let's say with a cattle herd, it's more often than not, they're really just going after the mice or other smaller animals that are occupying the same field areas. But of course, unfortunately, they do cause a bit of damage and problems for the farmer. And then often, sadly, the farmer has to either resorts to shooting them, or worse, which I don't know that I should go into the full details, but I think we get the point. Now, of course, there are ways that we're helping them, but learning to coexist, I'm sorry to say, it might be a little bit challenging, because we have to figure out how to live side by side, but some things are easier said than done. However, humanity is coming up with ways to help coyotes today. So, especially those living in the cities or other human-made habitats. So, the first step if you see a coyote and if it's just minding its business, just leave it alone and just then be sure to call your local authorities to see whether further action needs to be taken, or if it does pose as a threat. Which unfortunately these guys can be carriers of rabies and mange and other forms of diseases, which unfortunately does have to call for them to be put down. I'm sorry, it's cruel, it sounds cruel, but often it is for the health and safety of not just the animal, but ourselves as well. Or really, while it is for our health and safety, it's also for their own sake, because they may be suffering. Now the next one, this may make me sound like I'm going crazy, but hunting coyotes may actually prove to be somewhat of another form of how to coexist. Now here, hunting is what I would like to call it as the very, very, very last resort. But hunting coyotes can help ecosystems from these guys overpopulating and causing more problems, like the rabies or other diseases or other problems for farmers. But how can the farmers learn to coexist with these guys without having to shoot them? Simple. Well, there are ways. There can be electric fences or corralling the livestock at night, having guard animals to protect your livestock, like your sheep or your cattle, which of course, as we know, can include dogs, sometimes donkeys, and then this last guard animal might completely surprise you. Llamas. Yeah, it's true. But here's a little side story. Believe it or not, once a farmer noticed that a llama had wandered into his sheep herd's pasture by accident, but all of a sudden the llama seemed to react and run in a direction. The farmer looked, and to his surprise, he saw a predator that was stalking his sheep herd, and saw that this llama was driving the animal away. So now other different animals are being incorporated into livestock to help keep their animals safe. So, and here I would like to, even though we are a little bit early today, I would like to end today's episode with a bit of good news. As I've said, coyotes are spreading across North America, and now they've occupied not just Canada, but even Central America. So, while they do present challenges and a bit of problems for humans as well as for the wildlife, it's not really their fault. They're just occupying ecological niches that were once occupied by others. While it does seem a bit challenging, it seems like the coyotes are going to be fine because they are pretty smart animals. Heck, like the cartoon namesake, Wile E. Coyote, super genius. They're adaptable and they seem to be doing pretty fine. So, but just remember to keep your distance and show respect, because these animals do help us in many different ways, just like everything else in the circle of life. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for this week. So be sure to join me next week as we uncover the coyotes' other challenge, namesake, Roadrunners. But until then, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there.